Hi, I'm Dominic,
And I'm Elijah.
and we love out loud.
What is your current relationship status as a couple, and for how long? And how long have you two been together as a couple?
So we've been engaged for
A year.
almost a year now,
Yeah.
and been together, and we've been in a relationship for about 2 years.
What does love mean to you as a same gender loving couple?
As far as like a same gender loving couple, I don't think it really is different from like a heteronormative couple, but it's I think to me it's that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get, and it's basically I think it's a point where I feel like I can't be without Dominic. There's that love and connection that I have. That if I don't see him for a day, I'm already missing him, or if I don't get a call or a text, my day feels entirely different.
That's how you feel?
Yeah.
When or how did you know you were ready to commit to your relationship?
I felt like I was ready to commit to a relationship when I met Dominic, because I had been doing a lot of self work, a lot of learning to love on myself. And I know one thing that one of my friends told me was to actually make room on your bed for your partner. And my bed actually used to be very, very junky. So I think outside of those two things, I think that's when I knew I was ready to really just jump in and trust and be in a committed relationship.
Yeah. And I think for me, I knew I was ready to jump into a committed relationship with Elijah when, or at least knew I was ready. Well, let me step back. I moved to New York City to find love. And I think my life in California allowed me to explore a number of different things, live my life to the fullest, try different things, engage in different activities that I feel made me ready to move towards a committed relationship. And so when I met Elijah, learning about his values and how he is and who he is as an individual, I knew right away that I was ready to definitely fall in love with him.
I thought you moved because of
school. I moved for both. I moved to fall in love, but school was the vehicle to get me here.
How important has it been for you to incorporate same gender loving couples into your social circle?
So it's important for us to integrate other same-sex, same gender-loving couples into our friend circle, because I think you need examples of where to go next. I think when I was younger, at least, there wasn't too many examples of just how to be in relationship with someone who looks like you, someone who experiences the same dilemmas, the same problems, the same joys. And so I think it's important to have those similar mentors in your life to guide you through the tough moments, as well as be able to celebrate the joyful and happy moments. And for us, I think we've made it a commitment to really surround ourselves with not only individuals who engage in similar types of relationships, but also people who've been in relationships for longer spans of time, as well as shorter spans of time. I think we've had friends who've been together for 10 plus years, and then we have friends who've engaged in relationships for a couple months and just starting out. And those ranges of experiences really help guide us in how we engage in our relationship together.
What is a challenging aspect of being in a committed same gender loving relationship within the LGBTQ community?
So I think one of the challenging aspects of being in a committed relationship inside of the LGBT community is, I think on a personal level, you have to continue working on yourself. I think the work is not done. I think sometimes, when I was single, I had this fantasy of when I'm going to get into this relationship and that's going to be it. But no, there's a lot of work to do. You're now with someone else, so you're learning someone else. You're learning to be with someone else. And sometimes some of those habits that you had being a single person don't work anymore. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I had to learn how to grow out of
How does visibility of same gender loving couples on social media and journalistic media, especially couples who visually resembles your coupling, affirm your relationship status?
Visibility of same gender loving couples in the world in general is so vital, especially on social media platforms. And as it relates to our relationship, for me personally, I look to those examples for ideas on how to love better. I look at where are people going, what are they doing, and just realizing that there's other areas of the world where people are celebrating love similar to how we are. It's so important to me. And I think visibility in itself, if I think back to my childhood, although there wasn't many examples, there were some. And I remember watching TV and seeing the first person that I ever saw out themselves on television and feeling affirmed in a way where I was like, oh, I get to be who I am. Like, I'm not what everybody around me is saying, which was like different and a mistake or a problem in some regard. Definitely had other voices in that conversation, but those were some of the louder ones for me. And so to see the visibility across our entire nation allows me to not only affirm myself, but also support others in affirming their existence, really.
And I think I can kind of like add on to that. I think having that visibility has been important. I think now, as I remember, like back in my childhood, like the only thing out there was like queer as folk, and that wasn't anything that I think I was like, oh, I'm gay. Like, is this gonna be my life? So I didn't really identify too much with that. But now seeing like things even like Empire, but we're not gonna talk too much about that. But like seeing like a same gender couple of color on TV that was like accepted, and you saw different types of relationships on there, because I think Jesse was with a few different characters. But I think having that out there, I think paved us for a different way to make me know that we actually are a little bit closer to being accepted, that there are different types of relationships, and that people are welcome to them, they're open to them, and it's becoming a space where you don't see too many people expressing homophobic views, even though they're still out there. There are more people out there that are loving and accepting now, and they're not like screaming like, oh, like why is this couple like out there? Why is this couple gay? Like, okay, this couple that is that isn't over extravagant or extra femme or anything like that. There's different types of relationships that can exist. So I think it's important to have it on social media, and it has been helpful to me to know that there is hope, there's stuff to grow into, there's things to connect, there's places for us to grow as a couple and still have fun with each other.
Yeah. And actually, if I think about my childhood as well, I remember seeing Queer as Folk, and it being one of the most predominant voices out there at the time, or at least for me. And I remember like taking pieces of that and saying, oh, I can maybe fit into that box, or I can maybe fit in there, but none of this really relates to me. And so I never really felt affirmed because there was never someone who looked like me even on that show. And so I get excited when people show love on social media. I think it's definitely needed and wanted.
Outside of governmental policies on same gender loving relationships, what challenges do you face to live unapologetically out as a same gender loving couple?
I think we're definitely in a privileged space to not only live in New York City, which is the most progressive place in the world. And I also think I'm originally from California, so that's also an equally progressive place. And so I've been very privileged to be able to experience life in a very open way. And I'm very clear that there's other parts of the world, as we've been able to travel, to understand that that's not possible for everybody. But in regards to policies and how we move around the world in that sense, definitely we're always conscious of where we travel. And not only conscious of it, but how we engage in public spaces. Like, it definitely looked different in New York City or California versus going to the middle of the US or even outside of the country in places that are not as progressive, it impacts how I move through the world in that way. I don't know what your thoughts are on policies and how that impacts us.
I think in our general spaces in terms of like work and I guess like friends and family, I think there aren't any limiting factors. I know like I think I have work for one of the very friendly LGBT organizations, Johnson Johnson, and they have a lot of policies open that are very pro-LGBT, including adoption and surrogate support. And I know like your school is very welcoming and accepting of me in spaces and stuff like that. So I haven't really seen too many any issues in terms of that.
Yeah. Again, I'll just echo. We are very privileged in that way. I've gone to many of his corporate events and met majority, if not all, of his coworkers. He's attended a lot of my celebratory events at my job. I work in education and do a number of different things, but on both ends, we're equally privileged to have people who not only support us, but love us and invite us into those spaces. If I think back to my earlier years prior to jumping into my career, there was definitely some moments where I pushed the boundaries of inviting people that I was in relationship with or trying to bring up topics around LGBTQ plus policies or things in general. And you could always tell there was pushback in those conversations. And so I never felt completely comfortable, but I always did it because I knew it was necessary. But I'm so grateful to be in New York City for that reason.
How does your coupling coexist with heterosexual relatives, friends, co-workers, neighbors, etc.?
Our coupling or being in a relationship is very open and friendly. I think our family members have been welcoming. I know for me, I think we recently spent Thanksgiving together, so that was pretty interesting. But I think my family's been pretty open because I think there are also other, I have a few other cousins and aunts that I identify from the LGBT community. So I think they've already had experience with them and they've learned the language, they've learned how to love. So my family has been more or less pretty open and welcoming. And then my friends at work and outside of work have also been very, very welcoming. I try to surround myself by very positive people, so I haven't really had too many issues in terms of that.
Yeah, and I think we just come from a loving family on both ends. We've had the opportunity to mingle with most of our family members, or at least closest family members, and I don't know, we just live in open places that value humans, I would say. And growing up in that space has allowed us to fully be ourselves in all the other areas that we walk into.
What is the best thing about being in your relationship?
I think the best thing in being in a relationship with Dominic is that there's never, I think, a dull moment. There's never a dull moment. There's always something interesting to learn about myself and learn about Dominic. And I think to know that there still is growth and not be complacent. So I think I always like that there's something new and something refreshing to learn about Dominic and to grow together with Dominic.
Yeah, I don't think I could add much more to that, but I was having a conversation a couple of days ago with my uncle, and he's been sort of an example for me. He's been in a heterosexual relationship for 20 plus years now, and so I always go to him for advice, and we have similar backgrounds, so it's easy to bounce ideas off of him. But one of the things that we talked about was literally growing up in two different spaces and two different experiences and being able to bring those together. I've grown tremendously in how I not only see myself, but how I think about the world in general. And I think Elijah allows me to not only better who I am, but just see things from a different perspective, which is always needed and necessary as you grow together.
What significant moment, event, or gesture made you feel stronger together as a couple?
So I
You
think
go.
the significant event that I think made us feel a lot stronger as a couple, and also I think as an entire family, both his and mine, is I think we went whitewater rafting. So this is very new, I think, in our relationship, and I think I had recently met his mom, probably like 2 months, 3 months
Yeah, I
in.
think it was that summer actually, so a couple months.
So a couple months in, I met his mom, and I normally go on this annual whitewater rafting trip. So I invited his mom. He came. One of my sisters came, and my dad came. So like this was like a very, I think, interesting trip because there's a lot of like controllers. Everyone wanted to have something to kind of say, and like lead the boat, and it was just interesting because we were, I think, trying to just navigate down the water, and it was just like a fun experience. And I think what kind of saved or was that pivotal moment for me is I think one time I think my sister almost fell into the water, and I didn't do anything, but he was actually there to save her. So I think him just kind of like jumping in and like being even not really having that much connection with her, I think just reaching out and being that helping hand and being there for her. And I think at that moment I knew that like he had not only my back, but like my sister's back.
Yeah, I think it was such a fun moment. We learned so much about each other, both in our family as well as ourselves, and how we problem solve, really, because there were so many things going on in that boat, which was funny. Me and my mother are just like jokers all the time. We laugh at everything, and it was very clear that his family is very competitive and serious. And so we're laughing down this river. They wanted to win, we wanted to have fun, and it was like it was just funny. But it definitely created a closer bond between us and allowed our families to blend in such a unique way. And that's definitely been one of my top memorable experiences as well. And needless to say, his after that, I would say his sister now claims me as her brother because he didn't save her. But all in jokes, but it was definitely fun.
If there was an official set of guidelines for the ideal relationship for same-gender loving people, what values, qualities, or rules would you add onto that list?
The ideal guideline for couples in same gender loving relationships is similar to anybody who's in love, but for us specifically, I think it's around communication and just being able to clearly be yourself fully in whatever conversation comes up, because there's going to be fun times, there's going to be loving times, there's going to be hard times and exciting times, and all the array of emotions that come with that. But if you're not able to jump into a conversation being fully yourself and comfortable being yourself, then I think you're going to have some struggles being in relationship with anybody. For us, I think our just working guideline in general has been to not only be honest, but communicate as it comes up and continue to communicate as we go through whatever we go through, no matter how hard or easy it is in the process.
Yeah, no, that was like a big learning process for me for communicating. I want to say that I wasn't an only child, but sometimes I feel like I think I was by myself, sometimes being a loner. So a lot of times the conversations were with myself. So I think learning how to communicate has been something that has strengthened our relationship a lot more, and just being like speaking what's on my mind, and not holding back and not being afraid of like what develops as I open up and say stuff.
And I greatly appreciate his sister, who is very similar to me and continues to affirm that my communication style is not unnormal. But yeah, it's been fun getting to know Elijah and continue to get to know him as we move through this communication journey and spending our life together.
What is the trait you believe your significant other values most about you?
That's funny. What is the trait that Elijah values about me most? I might say my willingness to just like jump in immediately and get things done quickly, maybe.
Yes. I'm gonna say yes to that. I particularly like that just because sometimes I think he's quicker to make decisions. And sometimes I like to have a lot of information before jumping in.
Quite a bit.
But he's a little more direct in things. So like if we're gonna go somewhere or if he wants to go somewhere, it's like, okay, let's go. And I'm like, okay. So then like I'll take the guesswork or the extra unnecessary guesswork out of everything. And I think for me, I would say like Dominic likes that. I think
You don't even know what I like, do you?
I'm trying to say there's a lot of things, but I think that I always have a smile. At the end of the day, I like to have like a smile on my face. So even if there's like a rough time, or we have like an argument, at the end of the day, there is some smile on my face or some sassy little remark to let them know that like I'm happy and still kicking.
I love that, actually. That's very true. He definitely brings the life to the party and is not only serious at moments, but like easily jokeable in every single scenario, and I love that.
How do you avoid losing yourself as an individual in your relationship while keeping your significant other happy?
So the way that we work towards not losing ourselves within this relationship while also building together, earlier on in our relationship, there was a lot of things that came up around time and availability. And it's because we're both just equally busy people in general. And one of the central points of our relationship, which I really love, is that we're committed to not only living our best individual life, but our best life together. And one of the things that we truly value is just chasing our own dreams. Sometimes those overlap and sometimes they don't. But I think we've given each other permission to really not only dream big, but to make space to chase your own individual dreams. Because I personally believe if you're not chasing your own dreams, at some point you're gonna live towards some regret. And in my experience, I've seen a number of couples sort of offer that advice to me that, you know, you grow to regret some things, like you give up some time or you give up certain things in a relationship to make somebody else happy. But in the long term, you end up regretting it. And so for us, we've really been committed to chasing our own dreams, as well as creating space to collaborate together on mutual dreams as we move forward in this process. And that's the way that at least I try to maintain sanity and not losing myself.
I think I would agree, and I think what we've also done is I think we've let people in. I know between us as a unit, there's some things that he's tried that he normally doesn't, that I like to do, like hiking. Like that's not something that
not at all.
And I've tried different things. I'm trying to remember. What did I try recently? Working out. Yes.
Oh, yes.
But we've also, I think in not losing ourselves individually, we've also kind of like created a family or friend unit. So I think instead of having like our own like individual friends, our friends have, I think, gotten to know each other, and there's more of like this bigger circle where people are allowed to kind of like connect together, where like our friend circles are intertwining. And I think because they now know us as a couple, they are kind of like combining together to know like there's a friendship that exists outside of like just hanging out with Dominic and just hanging out with Elijah.
Definitely agree with that. And I love his friends, like they're amazing. So it makes life easier.
Definitely.
If you two had to be apart for a significant amount of time, what would you miss most about each other?
There's a lot of stuff. If we were separated for an extended amount of time, the thing that I would miss most would be his smile, like laughing together. And and just starting the day in a joyful way. Typically, he wakes up a lot earlier than I do, and when I do wake up, I'm usually greeted with some type of excitement or smile, and it allows me to start my day in a extraordinary positive way. And so I would miss that most, being able to wake up to him and smile together.
I'm trying to figure out what I would miss. There are a lot of things, but what should I pick?
You don't be missing me.
Yes, I do. I think being with him has allowed me to grow. I think now, even like during this Corona time, I think I've kind of experimented with cooking, and I think he's reignited my passion to want to do that. Because I remember when I was a lot younger, I used to cook a lot, especially because I think I was like a latchkey kid, and my mom was at work until like 6 or 7 o'clock, and like I'd be at home sometimes. So I just learned how to like grow and love food and go in the kitchen. But I think I would miss, cooking for him, and I think having that experience to see the smile on his face where he's like, oh, this food is lovely, or this food is salty sometimes. But yes, just seeing his excitement about the time that I took to make a meal.
Well, I love your food.
What is a myth about same-gender loving relationships that must be dispelled?
You want to answer that?
You can answer.
Okay. Let me think about that, actually. Oh, actually, I would say, so a myth that I would like to demystify around same gender loving couples in general is the idea that it has to be hard. In my experience, love comes easy, and it doesn't have to be hard work. It is work to be in the relationship, but it doesn't have to be hard, and it could be completely easy. It could be an experience where you jump in and you know right away, or it could be something that you build upon. But I would demystify that it really doesn't have to be hard, and I don't know, you just get to be yourself. Like, you don't have to be somebody else to be in that relationship.
What has your relationship taught you about yourself or love that you have not experienced before meeting your significant other?
So I would say my relationship with Elijah has really taught me, specifically about love, is you don't have to do it alone. I've gone through a life of achieving things at such a high level, sometimes on my own, because I'm equally as competitive as he is, and I'm equally as as excited to experience life in just a grand way. And sometimes that means you have to work a little bit harder than most people to achieve what you want in life. And I think what I've learned from Elijah is that not only does he have the equal mindset of myself, but I've learned that when we do things together, that it just becomes bigger than what I could ever imagine. And so being in a relationship with him and loving him, I've learned to just negotiate and do things together, especially if you just want to go further in whatever you're aspiring to do.
I think I'm still trying to think about what I've learned, because I think there's been so much. But I think the biggest one is that, like, I think similar to what he said, that you don't have to do this by yourself. I think before Dominic, I think I've been a spot of like, I can be bad all by myself, and this is how I'm gonna operate. And being that kind of like jaded gay, that's like, oh, I'm never gonna find love, or like love is never gonna be there for me, or I'm too good for it, or too busy. But I think being in relationship and being in partnership, there's been so much growth and knowledge to know that there is more to do. There's more that we can do together. And I feel like I said, like, the biggest thing is that it doesn't have to be hard. I think I saw all these like previous relationships, and some of them weren't probably as healthy as you would want them to be. But I think in my mindset, it was like, okay, these relationships looked hard, I'm not gonna do this. Like these relationships have all these flaws to them. But I think all relationships do, because it's a continual process of growing and getting to know what works and what doesn't work, and progressing as a unit together to take the next step forward.
You learned all that?
Yes, I did. Promise.
So we just want to take this moment to really express our gratitude for being able to talk about love in this way and share our love out loud. Yeah.
It's been, I think, so inspiring, and the questions, because it makes us think back and reflect on some of these moments that sometimes we may forget or may not be in our mind, the front of our mind. So I think, thank you for allowing us to think and reconnect to a lot of these things that bring joy and happiness to a relationship. So thank you for allowing us to
Love out loud.